The 6 interviews you had with the president, I will tell you, as someone who's read the book and enjoyed it enormously, that the most enjoyable thing was hearing the president in the book.
Yeah.
People who have, when he was governor here, who got to know him a little bit, who heard him, you captured his voice maybe as well as anybody has done that. And I wonder whether that was something going in you thought you had to do, that for this book to be authentic, the president really had to come off the page.
Well, I mean, the truth is, by the time the president decided, by the time I got the email from Dan Bartlett at the beginning of December saying, okay, he'll do one and see how it goes, I'd written 80% of the book. Yeah. And I was already just figuring, you know, full speed ahead. And I was doing my best to capture his persona, to capture his voice without actually doing current interviews with him. It was only after getting that first interview and at the end of it him saying, okay, we'll do another, and this ultimately leading to 6th, that I realized, wow, you know, that's, I can't believe I even considered the possibility of doing this without his participation. Right. Because yes, he has a very pungent voice, and in particular that first interview, which was on December the 12th, it was the day he decided in the wake of the Iraq Study Group report that he had better spend the holidays thinking about what the hell he was going to do next in Iraq, that he was going to postpone the speech, and he knew he'd take a beating in the press for delaying this, and he was very, very edgy. And it was sort of an emotional tour de force, that interview. I couldn't tell where I stood in it, but I think, Evan, by like the 3rd interview or so, the president really was able to sort of suspend time and the events around him. We were never interrupted, ever. He seemed to look forward to them. He began by the 3rd or 4th interview to really take charge of the interviews and to say, Draper, I want you to understand
to direct you to certain subjects.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I learned very early on that the president's memory is not so good, and drilling down with him on a particular meeting right. He would just feel then trapped, and he would do a dismissive, I don't remember that, or it didn't happen, and better instead to sort of float a general thing about, say, Maliki and his relationship, and let him kind of in this discursive, impressionistic way riff on it. And the interesting thing was that he really seemed desirous of making this time well spent for us both. And so that he became invested in the value of this project, I think, really contributed to his voice being as alive as it is on the page.
Did you come out of this liking the president personally or respecting him officially, in an official capacity, more so than you did going in?
Well, I always liked him. I came away, I think, and maybe even before the interviews, Evan, I mean, as I say, had crossed this bridge and came to view him as my literary property, as bizarre as that sounds, and so I began viewing him as this, you know, main character of this fact-based novel that I was writing, and now here it was, this character before me talking about how he cries a lot, talking about how the presidency is given to self-pity, and he knows how corrosive that is, and Laura's the one who sort of talks him down from that, and talks about how he's trying to teach leadership to Maliki, and about how Petraeus will have to make the case for the surge now because he knows no one listens to him anymore, and I really got this, you know, kind of emotional symphony of the man, and so this by way of saying that these were moments that lent themselves to a humane depiction.
They were genuine moments.
Yeah, they were very much so, which, you know, I knew was great for the book, but also made these moments, you know, there's a better word than touching, but we'll settle on that.
But as you said, it may have actually been good not just for you, but for him to have the opportunity to do this. And I'm thinking about why people were not able to talk him out of it. We know from the LA Times reporting after your book came out that at least Karl Rove
I'll tell you who. Karl Rove
made an attempt to get him not to cooperate.
Well, and it's because of you. Rove had told him early on that Draper's part of that Texas Monthly cabal.
Well, I think actually he said to be that liberal Texas Monthly.
That liberal Texas Monthly cabal, and their point of view is that Bush was a great governor. You know, then he left Texas, went to Washington, lost his values, lost his sense of direction, and he's become this other creature. Rove tried to talk him out of it. So did Laura Bush. Not out of anything personal, but this is a typical thing of Mrs. Bush, that she tends to put the brakes on his impulses.
She's protective of him.
She is, and she just said, you know, Bushy, just do your own book, but she ultimately cooperated, and it was interesting that even as Rove was telling Bush don't cooperate, Rove did maybe 12 interviews.
Yeah, he did talk to you
expansively
for all of his attempt to get the book killed.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, no. He couldn't get the fellow to shut up.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Do you think Bushy will write his own book in the end?
He will definitely do so, and he doesn't look forward to it. At the end of my last interview with him, and this would often happen at the end of these interviews, they wouldn't just rush me out the door. We'd stand up, and the president would kind of look out the window and jingle his coins in his pocket and point out Barney and observe something Barney was doing or asking me about my personal life, who I was dating, but he began asking me about the process of writing my book, and he said he was going to be doing it himself. He didn't look forward to it all, and and it makes sense. I mean, he loves to point out, he's not a navel gazer, and it is true that he's not given much to introspection, and certainly not into reflecting on mistakes made. And so I think that whoever is saddled with the job of being co-author has their work cut out for him in trying to bring the stuff out of him. I mean, when the president when he said a lot of interesting things to me, but he would often just say over and over, president's got to lead, president's got to make tough decisions, and a 250,000 word text is going to have to say more than that.